Hi, this is Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, and you're listening to Briefings Direct. Our next digital business innovation discussion explores how modern marketing is impacted by the General Data Protection Regulation, or GDPR. Those seeking to know their customers well are finding that this sweeping new European law forces a dramatic shift in how customer data can be gathered, shared, and protected. And it means that low-touch marketing via mass data analysis and inference alone will likely need to revert to the good old-fashioned handshake and more high-touch, trust-building approaches that bind people to people and people to brands. Here to help us sort through a more practical approach of rethinking marketing within the requirements of highly protected data is our guest. We're here with Tiffin Dano-Kwan, Chief Marketing Officer at SAP Ariba. Welcome, Tiffin.
Thank you, Dana. Very glad to be with you today.
We're glad to have you. Tiffin, now with GDPR fully in place, it seems that we've had to embrace the concept that, good privacy is good business. In doing so, it seems to me that perhaps marketers have become too dependent on data-driven and digital means of interacting with their customers and prospects. So has GDPR done us a favor in marketing, maybe as an unintended consequence, when it comes to bringing the human relationships aspect of business back into the fore?
You know, Dana, I think GDPR is giving us the ability to remember what marketing is, who we are as marketers. And I think that it is absolutely critical to go back to the foundation of what marketing is. If you think about the role of marketing in an organization, we are a little bit of the Picassos of companies. We are the creative souls. We bring the soul back into an organization. Why? Because we control the narrative, we control the storytelling, we control the brand, but also in many ways, and especially over the past couple of years, we control the data because our focus is understanding the audience and our customers. So in doing so, of course, with the rise of digital over the past couple of years, data was at the center of a lot of things that marketing was driving. But make no mistake, marketers are creative people. Their soul, their passion is in creating, telling stories, amazing stories to promote and support sales in the selling process and being, frankly, the voice of the customer. I do believe, though, that the GDPR law is simply putting back in the forefront what the value of marketing is. It's not just controlling the data. It is much bigger. The opportunity is much larger. And we just have to go back to what marketing really brings to the table and go back to balancing, I would say, the data with the art, the science with the art, and ensuring that we continue to add value to represent the voice of the customer.
You know, it must have been tempting for marketers with the data approach to see a lot of scalability, that they could reach a lot more people with perhaps less money spent, but that the human touch, the high touch, is more expensive. It doesn't scale as well. Do you think that we need to revisit cost and scale when it comes to this human and creative aspect of marketing?
I think it's a matter of probably realigning the touch points and how we consider touch points when we drive marketing strategies. I don't think that there's one thing that is better than the other. It's a matter of sequencing and orchestrating, I would say, the efforts when we run marketing initiatives. If you think of the value of digital and where I think GDPR is getting us, is to really focus on the inbound marketing engine that we've been hearing about for so many years now. Every company who wants to scale has to build an inbound engine. But in reality, you know, if you look at the importance of creating inbound, it is such a long-term strategy. It's such an effort that doesn't provide necessarily a short-term gain from a marketing standpoint or pipeline standpoint. It is something that needs to be built upon as a long-term strategy around inbound strategies such as paid media, search, and so on. Those are very, very reliant on data. And the whole idea here, as you know, is to make sure that we are found on our digital properties It takes time, and it's really important to really focus on this. So I think that the no-touch concept or the low-touch concept remains important, but at the same time, the high-touch initiatives are equally important. And sometimes marketing can be accused of being completely disconnected from the customers because we don't have enough face-to-face, or we create large events without this understanding of high-touch. I do believe that what it brings here is an opportunity like never before for marketers to have that seat at the table with sales, with the customer representatives, and deeply, deeply connect with customers like never before.
All right, Tiffin, before we move forward on our discussion, let's step back and learn a little bit more about GDPR so I understand why the use of data has to be reevaluated. So GDPR is from the EU, but any company that deals with the supply chains that enter the European Union, one of the largest trading blocks in the world, is impacted by this. This penalties can be quite high if you don't treat data properly, or if you don't alert your customers if their private data has been compromised in any way. So how does this reduce the amount that marketers can do? What's the direct connection between what GDPR does and why marketers need to change what they do?
Well, I think, again, it's a matter of balancing the origin of, I would say, pipeline. If you look at the sources of pipeline in an organization, whether it's marketing-led or sales-led or even ecosystem or partner-led, everybody is tracking very, very specifically the sources of pipeline and what we call the marketing mix and where the source of the pipeline originates. What are the channels or the sources? So when you look at pure inbound strategies, you can see a lot of them coming out of digital properties versus physical properties. What we need to do is to acknowledge perhaps the drop in outbound sources. So the typical outbound, whether it's telemarketing, inside sales, the good old events, which are very much outbound driven, understand the impact. So there's certainly going to be, probably over the next couple of months, a direct impact on all, sources of pipeline. We're going to have to monitor where the opportunities, the leads are coming from. And those who are going to really succeed are those who are going to shift the sources of the pipeline, understand over time how to anticipate the timing for that pipeline to regenerate. So we absolutely going to have to really make that shift. And like I said earlier, inbound takes more time, so the sources of pipeline are usually more elongated in time versus outbound strategies. So there's some readjustment that needs to happen, but also new forms of capturing opportunities, I would say, business. Whether it is perhaps going back to old-fashioned direct mail, believe it or not, this is back in fashion, and this is going to happen over. But it's also new trends or new ways of doing marketing, such as influencer marketing. If you think about the value of social media and blog, all those digital influencers in the world are going to have a blast. Because today, if you want to multiply your impact, if you want to reach out to your audiences, you can't just do it by yourself. You have to create an ecosystem and a network of influencers that are going to carry your voice and carry the value for you. And once they do that, they tap into their own networks, and those networks capture the audience, if you like, that you're looking for. Once those audiences are captured through the network of influencers, you have a chance to send them back to your digital properties and .com properties. So I'm very excited to see how we can balance, I would say, the impact of GDPR, but also create new routes, test new things, experiment new opportunities. So yes, we're going to see a drop in the traditional sources of pipeline. It's obvious, and we're going to have to readjust. But that's exciting. That's going to mean more experimentation, thinking outside the box, and reinventing ourselves.
And how is this different from business to consumer and business to business? We've seen a lot of influencer marketing effective for consumer and some retail. Is it just as effective in the B2B space, or how should B2B marketers perhaps be thinking differently?
I don't know that it's that different, to be honest with you, Dana. I think it's the same thing. I think we're going to have to partner a lot more with what I call an ecosystem of influencers, whether it be partners, analysts, press, bloggers, or very strong influencers who are extremely well networked. It's the same thing in the consumer world. I think the idea here is really to multiply the value, and you're going to see a lot more partnerships, co-branding initiatives that are going to rise, or two brands coming together and carrying the power of their message to reach out to joint customers.
It's been very impactful for me to be an observer of SAP Ariba, and over the past several years, see how the company has really embraced the notion of doing well as doing good in terms of the relationship with customers and the perception of a company. So you've taken this to your customers, and I think they received it very well. Is there a relationship between this new thinking of marketing and also that idea of being a company that's perceived as being a good player, a good custodian in their particular ecosystems?
It's a great question, Dana. I think those two things are just happening at the same time. They just happen that on one hand, we are really moving towards being more purposeful because the world simply is moving towards becoming more purposeful. And this is a trend that we see because I would say that the new buyers right now, whether it's in the B2C world or B2B world, are extremely sensitive to those notions. Millennials, the new generations, Generation Z especially, they're sensitive to those types of topics. They open, they look at the news, they click on all those digital newspapers, and then they see the same thing all day long, and they truly worry for their future. So that purpose, I would say, angle is here to last. That is my strong belief. It is here to remind us that companies are not just here to make a profit. They're here to make a difference. And that trend is extremely valuable and extremely important. And it just happened that GDPR is also shifting the focus, where now we are not just seeking the data to reach out to audiences. We have to be meaningful and purposeful when we reach out to our customers because, well, they have the ability to not provide content. So it means that we have to give them something that is meaningful and purposeful. So those two things are connected to each other because it's going to accelerate the value of purpose. It's going to accelerate the value of meaningful conversations with our customers that are truly based not just on profit and data only, but on making truly a difference in the world. And that is a beautiful thing.
Do you think, Tiffany, that we're going to start to see more user conferences, perhaps smaller ones, more regional, more localized, rather than just massive once-a-year or twice-a-year events? How does this manifest itself in that conference, that event, that FaceTime environment? Is more the answer?
I think that we're going to see probably some readjustments. Historically, the big conferences used to happen in Europe and North America, but think about the emerging markets. Think about Latin America. Think about Asia Pacific and Japan. Think about Middle East. All of those regions are also growing. They're getting more connected. Myself, in my organization, I'm pushing for it. People don't necessarily want to travel so long to go to big conference, but rather prefer local interaction. So I think the regionalization, the localizations of the messaging, the marketing activities is going to become a lot more prominent, in my opinion, in the next coming years.
Another big trend these days is the power that artificial intelligence and machine learning can bring to solve many types of problems. It seems to me that while we might be more cautious about what we do with data, we might not get the same amount of data under a GDPR regime, but that the tools to what we can do with the data that we can have are much stronger than before. Is there some way in which we can bring the power of AI and machine learning into a creative process that allows a better relationship between businesses and consumers and businesses and businesses? How does AI factor into the next few years in a GDPR world?
Well, I think AI is going to be a way for us to get more accuracy in the understanding of the customer, definitely. I think it is going to allow us to learn about behaviors and to do it at scale. You know, business technologies and processes are going to be enabled through artificial intelligence and machine learning. That is obvious. All of the studies indicate it, and it starts with, obvious sectors and industries, but it's going to expand drastically because it informs more accuracy in the understanding of processes and customers.
Perhaps a way to look at it would be that the aggregated data and anonymized data will be used in an AI environment in order to then allow you to get closer to your customer in that high-touch fashion. I'm just sort of maybe blue sky thinking here, but it seems to me that there's an opportunity like we're seeing in retail. So when somebody walks into a bricks-and-mortar environment, a store, you might not know them individually, but you've got enough inference from aggregated data to be able to have a much better user experience.
That's exactly right. I think it's going to inform the experience in general. Whether that experience is communicated through marketing ways or face-to-face ways, sales ways, and others, I do believe that at the end of the day, and you're right, the user experience is at the core of everything that we do. And users get really specific about what they want. They want their experiences to be personal, to be ethical, to be local and regionalized. They want them to be extremely pointed to their specific needs. And I do believe that artificial intelligence is going to allow us to get rapidly attuned to the customer experience and constantly innovate and improve that experience. So in the end, if it serves the benefit of providing a better experience, then I'd say why not? You know, let's use the tools that offer, I would say, a superior experience for our customers. I do, however, believe that the face-to-face approach, especially when you have complex interactions with customers, are still going to be needed. And the face-to-face, the approach, the real touch point that you have is still going to be necessary in complex, I would say, engagements with customers. Artificial intelligence can also help prepare those types of complex interactions. It really depends on what you sell, what you promote. If you promote a simple solution or things that can be triggered online, then the artificial intelligence is simply going to accelerate the ability for the customer to acquire or to click and purchase. But if you go with very complex sales cycles, for example, that require human interactions, you can use artificial intelligence to inform a conversation and be prepared for a meeting where you have very accurate data to present in front of your customer and support whatever value you want to bring to the customer.
Yeah, we're already certainly seeing that in the help desk field where people who are fielding calls from customers are much better prepared. It has really nothing to do with the customer themselves, but it's really making the agent themselves far more powerful. Okay, it seems now that with GDPR, we're limiting the types of data that we need to be concerned with, that we can use safely, that we need to protect. But the data that is available that you can use is still going to be very powerful, particularly used in a machine learning environment. How does this relate to the vast amount of data and information you have in the Ariba network, for example? Being in a position of having a lot of data but being aware that you have to be careful about how you use it seems to be the best of all worlds. How does the Ariba network and the type of data that you can use safely and appropriately benefit your customers?
We have done an extensive work at the product level within SAP Ariba to prepare for GDPR. In fact, our organization is one of the most prepared from a GDPR standpoint to not only be compliant, but offer solutions that are enabling our customers to become compliant from a GDPR standpoint. So to that end, I think that's one of the strengths of not just our network, but also the solutions that we bring to the industry and to our customers. And yes, of course, the network has a lot of data that is specific to the customer. And GDPR is simply reinforcing a simple fact, is that data has to be protected, that all companies, including SAP Ariba and all supply chain and procurement organizations in the world, have to be prepared for it, to work towards, respect of privacy, consent, and ensuring that the data is used in the right way. And SAP Ariba is absolutely partnering with all the suppliers and buyers in the network and preparing for this.
Great. I'm afraid we're just about out of time. Last question. If you're a marketing executive or a creative thinker and you weren't necessarily thinking about the impact of GDPR, maybe some advice now that you've thought through this a lot yourself, and obviously SAP Ariba has adjusted in the market. What should others who are just starting that process of adjusting from a marketing standpoint, what would you advise them to be doing when it comes to the best approach to GDPR?
My single biggest advice is to really focus on knowledge transfer within your organization. So GDPR is a collective responsibility. It is not just a marketing responsibility. The sales teams, the customer-facing teams, whether it's support, services, pre-sales, sales, everybody has to be prepared. So the knowledge transfer is absolutely critical, and it has to be clear, has to be simple, and equipping the field within your organization is critical. So that's number one internally. But the positioning also with the external contributors to your business are absolutely critical. So ensuring that GDPR is well understood with the external, I would say, suppliers that you have, but also agencies from a marketing standpoint, and then all the partners that you have is equally critical. So to me, the importance of preparing and doing a lot of knowledge transfer on what GDPR is, what is the impact, what's in it for each constituent of the business, and more importantly, how can people connect, communicate with their customers, what can they do, what they can't do, has to be explained in a very simple way and has to be explained over and over and over again. Because what we're seeing is the fact that it's new for everyone, and one launch is not enough. I think over the next couple of months, all the companies are going to have to heavily invest in regular knowledge transfer sessions and trainings to ensure that all of the customer-facing teams in the organization or outside are very well prepared for it.
Well, very good. I'm afraid we'll have to leave it there. You've been listening to a sponsored Briefings Direct discussion on how the sweeping new European Union law, GDPR, forces a dramatic shift in how customer data could be gathered, shared, and protected. And we've learned how low-touch marketing will likely need to revert to include more of the good old-fashioned handshake and personal trust-building methods that bind people to people and people to brands. So I'd like to offer a big thank you to our guest. We've been here with Tiffin Dano-Kwan, Chief Marketing Officer at SAP Ariba. Thank you so much, Tiffin.
Thank you very much, Dana.
And a big thank you to our audience as well for joining this Briefings Direct Digital Business Innovation interview. I'm Dana Gardner, Principal Analyst at Inter Arbor Solutions, your host throughout this series of SAP Ariba-sponsored Briefings Direct discussions. Thanks again for listening, and do come back next time.